Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Jimmy McGill. I'm the author of the book From Prison to Purpose. I'm a person in long term recovery, and I'm also a returning citizen who has found a successful pathway to reenter society post incarceration. I'm the host of today's show, From Prison to Purpose. That is me. And so I am super excited about today's guest, Mary Beth Hill. I've known Mary Beth for a long time, person in recovery, did Fed time, and now is on this highlight productive pathway, like has become this model for all returning citizens to really follow. So Mary Beth, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Are you excited?
I am.
We're going to have fun today.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So no hesitation. Who is Mary Beth Hill? Where are you from? How did you grow up? What does that look like?
Yeah. So I grew up in Central Arkansas. I was born in New Mexico, but my dad, his family was here, and the military brought us here. I grew up in Cabot, Arkansas. My childhood, it wasn't bad at first, right? But I like to say this because, people often wonder a lot of times, like, how did we get to where we were going, right? Like, what caused us to become addicts in recovery? And after working on myself and working a program, and I started to realize, like, it was trauma. My family was dysfunctional. I had a dad and a mom who couldn't get along, and I think as a child, Jimmy, I was just looking for attention, and I was trying to get it any way that I can, which resulted in, the use of drugs and alcohol. Bad attention was attention to me, and I was willing to take it however I could get it.
Yeah. So let me ask you something. Did you know your family was dysfunctional when you were living in that moment? Or was it when you got in recovery that you learned that you came from a broken home?
No, I knew something was wrong. So before we came to Arkansas, I had lived in 7 different states before I was 7 years old. My parents, they couldn't stay together to save their lives. And we would move from family's house to family's house. And then finally we ended up here in Arkansas.
What was that like when you got here?
Well, everywhere we had lived, from this point forward was coastal. So, we get to Arkansas and I'm like, where did you move me to?
Hillbillyville.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get it. So you went from living on the beach to living on the mountain.
Yeah. And we get here and, and we moved to Cabot, and let's just keep it real. There wasn't people who were my color in Cabot, This is the early 90s. And so that was a change. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what was that like?
It was hard. You're already the outsider coming in. You don't look like everybody else. My family was not wealthy by any means, so we were on the lower end of, society deems us as like lower class.
Yeah.
And it was hard. It was always trying to find where did I fit in the world? You know what I mean? Like, did I hang out with these kids? Did I hang out with these kids? Always trying to be too much or not enough, just trying to figure out like where my place was.
Just couldn't really be comfortable with Marybeth.
No, not at all.
So for the listeners who don't know, what do you identify as?
So I am half Filipino and half white.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, okay. So,
but I'm very dark complected.
Very, right? Okay. So and I remember so for those of you who don't know, Mary Beth and I, we ran around together. We were in active addiction together. We lived on the wrong side of the tracks together. Our friendship it pre-exists recovery, right? And so I can remember people thinking that you were different races than Filipino.
For sure.
I think I knew you for 3 years before. I did not know that you were not half black and half white.
Yeah.
So I can see where that would impact. So do you think that had what type of impact did that have on you?
It had a lot. So anybody that knows, the Central Arkansas area and Cabot, and I love the town, I love it. But back in the early 90s, you didn't see anybody who wasn't Caucasian, what I mean?
Cabot.
In Cabot. Yeah. It was non-existent. And so, it was just a constant battle of like trying to be white enough for the crowd and it was just hard. It was hard to try to find who I was living there,
So where did the drugs come into the picture at?
My parents had, they could not get along. And I remember the first time I ever even got drunk or high. When you're from a small town, there's not a lot of stuff to do. If you're not in a field somewhere dying of alcohol poisoning, like what are you really doing with your life? Once again, this is early 90s. There wasn't, social media. There wasn't nowhere for us to really entertain ourselves. So I started drinking. I think that's how a lot of it starts for us. Just hanging out on the weekends at parties, and I started to drink, and I liked the way that it made me feel.
How old were you then?
Probably 12. And I know that sounds crazy, but I had a sister who was exactly 4 years older than I was. And, she used to always like play this game, like with my parents, like, hey, can I go out with so-and-so, but I'll bring Mary Beth with me. I'll bring sis with me. And my parents were like, okay, yeah.
Yeah. Free night with no babies. Yeah. I get it.
Yeah.
As a dad, I can see where that would be appealing.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, okay. So you moved to Arkansas. You're 7 years old.
Yeah.
You're from a minority population.
That's
right.
Yeah.
You're brown color.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot of that in your town.
No.
By 12 years old, you're under the influence by obviously unhealthy influences, which you just said your sister.
Yeah.
And so how long did the alcohol thing last before substances came into the picture?
It was quick, without her, I started to realize like I like the way that this is making me feel.
The alcohol.
Yeah. And alcohol and smoking weed. And, eventually, I didn't need her to bring me around those people because now I done found my people,
Yeah.
But my home life was, was horrible, and so I was looking for an escape any way I could get it, any way to make me change the way that I feel. And what's crazy is looking back now, like I did not realize like I was sad, and I was depressed. And, but whenever I would get drunk or I would get high, like that was that euphoric happiness that I was looking
Back
for.
to life.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Like here I am.
Yes. It's amazing how drugs does that, right?
Yeah.
And we're lied to all of our life. We're being told drugs are bad. You're going to hate it. This is going to destroy your life. Right. And so we grow up believing that. And then the very first time we put a substance in us, we're like, holy crap, man, this is the greatest thing I've ever felt in my life. And now all of a sudden I feel lied to.
Yeah.
By every adult who ever told me that drugs would suck. The second I put one in me, I was like, they tried to keep this from us.
Yeah. Yeah. And, so let me kind of give you a backstory. Like my dad's family are Southern Baptists. And so when we get here, my grandfather's a Southern Baptist preacher, and so we're brought up into this religion to where, you don't do these things. But it was such a judgmental family, it's such a judgmental life that like, I think I rebelled, I was like, I'm going to show you I can do this, and I did it, Yeah. But it was shortly after that. I think I was 13 years old the first time I ever got high on my substance of choice.
Okay. So did you ever go to church with your dad then?
Like I said, it's a small town and that's what we did. We went to Wednesday night services, Sunday night services. It was kind of expected of us. But when I went to the church, it was more stuff. I think it was more like a social thing for me.
Yes, for me too, man. Yeah. I got in. I did a lot of bad stuff at church.
Yes. Yeah.
I always snuck off in the baptism pool with somebody.
Yeah. It was a boy I was chasing. Yeah.
Yeah. Ain't that something? Okay. We'll use anything to change the way we feel.
Yeah,
I love it. I love it. Okay. So, all right. So childhood trauma, you moved here, you started using substances at 12, quickly progressed. What was your substance of choice?
Meth.
Yeah. It's Arkansas, man.
It is. Yeah.
You watch a documentary about us. We're famous for two things.
Yeah.
Methamphetamines or, what was I going to say?
What? Overprescribing medication?
Oh, gangs. No, yeah.
We're that too.
Yeah. Gangs.
Banging in Little Rock.
Yes. HBO. We were all over HBO. Mm-hmm. So, and then overprescribing. Yeah. We're number 2 in the nation for overprescribing opioids. And that's crazy.
Yeah.
We're also leading in reentry and recovery efforts, if you ask me. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
So there's people like you that are emerging from the flames of addiction in this fireproof suit. Like, hey, there's more to us than ex-convicts and drug addiction.
For sure.
Yeah. So, okay, meth takes over.
It does. Yeah. So I was 13 the first time I ever got high. And I swear to you, Jimmy, it was like, I will never forget the first time I took that first hit and that sense of happiness that I had felt. And, for drugs, for me, it didn't just like take me down through there at first. Like I was productive. You know, I would get high and I was excelling in school. Like, you know, I was doing all the things that I was supposed to be doing.
Manageable.
Yes. Yeah. But it progressed quickly. You know, it went from a weekend thing to now I need it. You got to have it and give me more. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I met you, you were pretty productive at hustling. Like, I can say that now because you got sentenced and went and did Fed time, but like, you know, that's what our life consisted of was, you know, we had to have, so I can really relate to what you said.
Yeah.
Always needing to fit in. And that's why we always had to have enough dope for everybody around us. We had to have what they wanted so that they would want us.
Yeah.
But it wasn't really us they wanted to be around. It was what we had that they wanted to be around.
Yeah,
and so I can vibe with that. And I remember us, you know, we were out in Cabot, and I think we were at Kathy Joe's or somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think they ended up going to federal prison too.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah. So you got a pretty big federal indictment.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that?
You know, let's just kind of talk about how I got there. You know, it always started with a relationship for me, you know. When I found how to sell drugs, right? Like I remember I was graduating high school and I was 17 years old, and I found this guy, and he is the one who really showed me the ways of the game, right? Yeah. I had kind of diddle daddled it a little bit here, right? Like just so I didn't have to pay for my drugs. And then whenever I met him, he is the one who showed me how to really sell drugs, and I was like an unstoppable thing for me then. You know, once I could figure out that I can make money and a lot of it, there was no stopping me.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there was a lot going on prior to the federal indictment, you know.
I was fixing to say there was some stopping you. The feds stopped you for sure.
Yeah, they stopped me, but it took a long time. You know, from the time that I started getting high and selling drugs, it was almost 13 years before the feds ever intervened.
It's crazy.
A long time.
That's crazy. Do you remember, like, what was some of the insanity of that lifestyle when you were trapped in the hustle and the... God. I know that the addiction comes with some real cuckoo level insanity, right?
But, yeah. You know, and this is the one thing that nobody likes to talk about, right? But, you know, I became a mother in active addiction. And, you know, and that was probably the one thing in my life that was hard for me to admit. And it took a lot, you know, to come out and say that that I used when I was pregnant with my kids. You know, like I was so caught up in the lifestyle. I was so consumed by the money, by the hustle that I couldn't stop, you know, for this baby that was inside of me.
Yeah.
You know, I managed
no matter the
consequences. Yeah. Now the first one I was able to, but you know, I have 3 kids, and so and I wasn't able to stop. But the most insane part, you know, the lifestyle is crazy, but I can remember whenever I had my daughter, and you probably remember this too, it's whenever Tommy Humphrey and I were together.
Yeah.
And he had just was involved in a shooting, and he had jumped bond, and he was at my house. You know, I get a phone call from my oldest son's dad, and he's like, the feds are at your mom's house. That was my first interaction with him in 2012.
Yeah. You think that's where they really, really started kind of getting on to? Because I remember when, I want to say that was Tommy and Jason, right? Like, because Jason went to the feds, you went too over that. And I think he's home now. Is Tommy home?
No, he just got indicted again.
Thank God for recovery, because there goes I.
Right.
You know what I mean?
By the grace of God, there goes I. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're good. But, you know, I remember, you know, I just had my daughter, and I had my homegirl come pick her up and take her out to the country because something wasn't feeling right, you know. And the insanity of the lifestyle, Jimmy, is like we had the motorcycle in the house, you know. And so when we get that phone call, like, the feds are at your mom's house, you know, we jump on that motorcycle and we fly out the kitchen and run from them on the bike. Like we're Bonnie and Clyde, you know. And it's by the grace of God that I'm even alive today to say, you know, that I am a person of recovery, because there's so many times, countless times over and over that I should be dead.
Yeah, for sure. Man, that's nuts. So who was the guy that introduced you to the game? Was that Tommy?
No, it was Stevie.
Oh,
Braswell. Okay.
Yeah. What? Get off the gas, man.
He's doing super good now too.
Yeah.
He's living in Florida, doing really good.
Yeah, he follows me on some of my social media. Every once in a while, I'll see his name comment.
Yeah.
So Stevie and I were at the boys' ranch together.
Yeah.
And if you've read my book From Prison to Purpose, there's a story in there where I'm 14 years old. I'm living at the Arkansas Baptist Boys Ranch. I don't fit in. I'm from North Little Rock, Arkansas, and they got me in Harrison. And I'm trying to run away and get back to North Little Rock, but I'm 4 hours away. So I try to saddle up a horse. I'm going to steal a horse and ride it back to North Little Rock, bro. And
Stop.
So I swear. And so I saddle up this Appaloosa, the show horse named Sassy or Smokey. What was one of them? I can't remember now. I have to reread the book. But I get to a cattle guard and the horse won't cross the cattle guard. Well, I'm from the city, so I don't know anything about that. And so I'm trying to make the horse go across the thing and the horse won't go. Well, Stevie ends up telling me, man, it's a cattle guard. That's why I wouldn't go across the thing. They won't cross the cattle guard because they can see through it. And so all ranches have cattle guards. Well, I didn't know nothing about that.
Right.
Stevie was there through all that with me. We had just came out of, I don't want to say the name of the treatment center, but it was a place where adolescents could get help. Well, Stevie ended up being part of a mass lawsuit during that time and got a substantial chunk of money from it.
Yeah.
And so that just led in, time he got that money, it just spiraled him into addiction. Right. So
yeah, he's doing
that's crazy.
Good now. Yeah.
I didn't know that. So how old were you when you got your federal indictment?
So I got indicted in 2017. It was right before I turned 31.
Yikes.
I was 30 right before I was 31.
Now, what did you feel? What was the thought that ran through your head when the feds showed up? How did they come in like on the movies and just kick the door in? Did they jump out of helicopters? I mean, did that walk me through the arrest?
There was a lot of events that led up, like right there before I got indicted on May 8th. So March 3rd of that year is whenever my youngest son's dad and I had shot him twice, right?
Yeah.
And I truly feel like that event alone, after all those years of domestic violence, and they were investigating me, I think whenever that incident occurred is what told the feds, like, we got to get in here and we got to stop this. Right?
Yeah. By now your name's popping. You done,
You
done been over there when they indicted little Tommy on the shooting. Now you done shot Jared.
Yeah.
And so, your name's you're in the bowling pot.
Yeah. So that happened March 3rd. I got arrested 420, like right after that in North Little Rock.
That's crazy. 420.
Yeah. Ruined my 420. And then they came and served my indictment May 8th. It was wild. So, where I got indicted at was the same house that Tommy and I had ran from the feds in 2012. And I'll never forget that day. My neighbor to the right of me, he's been living there for like 20 years. And so he has watched all of this stuff transpire. He's watched it all go down. And I remember looking at his face and he was just shaking his head like, here we go again. But when they came in like I was Al Capone or something. They came in, blocked my street off from end to end, guns drawn. My kid was at the house, and I knew then, like right then, there was no getting out of this one, because as addicts who have been in and out of jail, incarceration, you know how we are. We have these foxhole prayers, right? Like we could foxhole prayer our way out of things. I had enough bond money. I could always bond out. But I knew that day, whenever they came and served me with that indictment, that there was no getting out.
It was different.
Yeah.
It hit different.
Yeah.
That's what they say, man. When the feds come get you, you got.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, okay. So when the feds serve the indictment on you, what happens in that moment? They take you to jail?
Yeah. So they take you downtown to the federal processing building because they have to process you like mouth swab. They take all your identifiers and then they take you down to the Pulaski County Jail. Yeah.
And now a lot of times the feds, when you're on a fed charge, if you're not a flight risk, they will release you into like treatment and let you stay out on pretrial, right?
Yeah.
So did you experience that?
I did. So I went to Pulaski County. I was on a U.S. Marshal hold, and there was no getting out until we went to court. The day that I went to court is the day that they do like your plea and arraignment And well, it's called first appearance. And that is whenever they gave me the opportunity to go out on pretrial. And I can remember asking my attorney, I was like, can I go home first? And he was like, no, like, no, you can't go home first. And I went immediately into treatment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when I remember, when you had to go turn yourself in, a lot of people watching and listening, they don't know this, but I was at Mary Beth's court date. I testified on her behalf. At that time, I was the director for the Office of Recovery for the state of Arkansas, and so It was my job to find successful returning citizens and create a recovery workforce. And you were so instrumental in the early stages of peer support. And we had no idea that what we were building would gain national attention. And Arkansas did something really magical, man. And I remember you had to have 2 years clean to be a peer. So you went to federal prison clean.
I did.
You were in recovery.
Yeah. And I spent almost 2 years on pretrial before I went to the feds. Yeah.
And you were like, I've got videos of you speaking at high schools, trying to tell kids, youth, not like the only thing down this path is self-destruction.
That's right.
And then it takes a hell of a person, Mary Beth, to walk in federal court with your head held high, not knowing if you're coming home or not. Get your time, hold your head high, and say it'll be okay. Yeah. I'll be all right. And you came home clean.
That's right.
So what was that prison trip like in the feds? Was it like the movies or what?
I think it would have been. However, I went to prison pre-COVID. And so whenever I got there, it was okay. I was staying busy. I was working out. I was doing all the things. I was programming. And then that's when COVID hit. And that was a game changer. I have never struggled mentally like I did whenever I was in prison. It was hard. We were locked down. They restricted our access to television, to the telephones. I was in a camp, so there was really no way to separate us. And so, the whole social distancing thing, but there's no way to separate us. And so they treated us like animals and they locked us down. And I can remember just thinking, like, if I can just get out of here and get home to my kids, I got to make it another day, because we never knew what was going to happen next day to the next. There were so many people that were in there that were sick. Getting medical or anybody to come down there to look at them to help them was, almost non-existent. We were left to our own devices. There was nothing else for us to do besides just sit it out and wait.
Were people passing away from COVID in the federal prisons?
So we were right there next to a men's medium. Luckily, nobody from our compound died. However, they were anything that happens. So the way that the Bureau of Prisons work, anything that happens in any facility across the nation, it doesn't matter. Like if they riot, if they're sick, they lock us all down, So we had a lot of reports of other places that were near us that, they were really sick and doing bad, but we were very fortunate that there wasn't anybody that died at our location, but it was hard, your mental state. It's hard.
Yeah. Yeah. That's nuts. I cannot imagine being incarcerated during COVID because the same way I don't know what you went through on the inside with COVID. Like we were going through some serious changes out here, like especially the recovery community. So all of a sudden the thing that had kept us clean which was each other, right?
Yeah.
Our CrossFit gyms, our churches, our meeting places, all that was snatched away from us.
Yeah.
Like that. And so all of a sudden the thing that we needed most, we didn't have. And so you saw an astronomical rise in relapses. You saw suicide death rates just skyrocket. Mental health intakes were popping up everywhere, increased amounts, you know. And so COVID was just a destroyer for reentry services and recovery support services.
Yeah, it was hard in there, but I'm going to say this. I met some of the most God-fearing, wonderful women when I was in prison. Like we literally, you've been to prison, you know how it is. I don't know how it is at men's prisons, but with women's prisons, we create these families,
and that's not what happens in the men's joint.
Well, we do. We have families, we have the mom, we have families. And, we started a meeting inside of prison.
That's awesome.
We called it From the Inside Out. So we were having our meetings there. We had some really good people who were, crazy about caring about each other and making sure we were staying uplifted. We worked out together. We prayed together. We had meetings in there. And that's all we could do, until the restrictions were lifted, and then we were able to move around, but I was really fortunate enough that I was able to go through a program called RDAP. For anybody who's listening who doesn't know what that is, it's like a residential drug treatment program that's inside the Bureau of Prisons that they give to help people reenter society.
Yeah.
So I was able to go through that program. And when we were finally able to start programming again, I was able to complete that program and get a year off my sentence and come home early.
That's good, man.
Yeah.
So was there drugs there at the camp you were at?
Everywhere.
Right.
These people were crazy over there.
Yeah.
We would watch from our windows because, a camp, it's really kind of crazy how like society and institutions, like we were at this place, there's no fence. Okay. So you're on a compound. There's no fence, and we just taught ourselves like, this is where we're at, and I remember telling my friend Amber, I'm like, how crazy is this? Like I can see the road.
Were they sneaking in and out?
They would have these people come in and do drops, and these women would take these laundry carts, like these huge laundry carts, and push it down to the ditch, pick up the stuff, and then come on back through.
Where are they pushing them across the grass?
Yeah, they have this cart and they're
on the grass.
Yes.
It's hard to push anything.
And they were doing it, and they did that, and I was like, golly, man.
Where's the guards at during this time?
At the vestibule, up there at administration. I mean, there wasn't, I think at any given time, the camp I was at was really small. So there might've been like, especially on the weekends, maybe 5 guards that were there.
Out of how many women?
I think it was like a compound of like 300.
Okay. Yeah. You can get away with a lot there.
A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody ever sneak off and come back?
All the time.
That's nuts, man. It would not, I would have caught more time there.
Listen, they were crazy. I can remember sitting, because like you have, your programming housing unit, and then you have like general population. And I remember sitting over there, and these women had champagne, steak and shrimp.
The mobsters on a movie.
They were over there chilling.
Not the Gottis.
And then we look over and we see the SORT team coming through.
Okay, the SRT team. Okay.
Yeah, and they're ready. They're coming through, and they totally shook that place down. And I mean, like the amount of contraband that was inside of that unit was crazy.
What did they get?
Everything: alcohol, drugs. I mean, shoes. They had Jordans. They had cell phones.
How are they doing the drugs in there? Like IV drug use or
no? Surprisingly, there was a little bit of fentanyl in there. As a matter of fact, I want to say like the first week I was on the compound, there was a girl who had overdosed, and she didn't die, but they had overdosed, and then they had to take them out. But it was mostly meth.
Did they have Narcan there?
At the other housing, at the men's unit, which was, kind of down the way a little bit. But
now, is that a camp too? Is there a fence?
It's a medium. No.
So do mediums have fences?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So there ain't no sneaking out. Boy, they jealous. They hating on y'all because y'all just running rampant.
Yeah.
The Golden Girls, the Golden Girls, a bad version of them. That's crazy, man. Yeah. Okay, so you stay clean through all that.
Stay clean. Started a meeting.
Was that hard?
I'm so fortunate that I went to prison clean, right? Because I truly feel, Jimmy, like if I would have went in that place from the streets doing what I was doing before, there'd have been no way.
Yeah.
I would have went into prison and I'd have found another plug, and I'd have found a better way to be a criminal.
Yeah, you'd have went in there and tried to take over.
Yeah. Shot calling. You know what I mean? But I didn't. I went there clean, and I went with the mentality like I'm going to take this time to really work on myself. And, because that's the one thing that I think that as addicts, right? Like we have these trauma responses where we keep ourselves busy. But in prison, you don't have anything but time. That's it. And I met some girls, who kind of had a similar story to myself. And then that's when we started a fellowship meeting inside of prison because, there isn't real recovery like that inside of prison. You know?
Yeah, it's non-existent.
Yeah, it's non-existent.
I had no idea what recovery was till I came home and found myself in a place of recovery.
Yeah.
Okay, so you stay clean through that. You don't use. You had an active change in your thoughts and your ideas.
For sure.
Before getting sentenced.
Yeah.
Right? Like a true heart change.
Yeah.
So where do you go after release when you come home?
So with the federal prison system, you don't get to just come home, So I went to City of Faith, which is a halfway house that is in Little Rock.
Yeah.
And that place was hard. you're in a housing place that had like 80 something men in it and 4 women. And so it was difficult. But after I was there for like 3 months, then I was sent to home confinement with an ankle monitor at home to finish out the remainder of my sentence.
So how long do you stay in the federal halfway house?
Like 3 months, 4 months. Yeah.
And how come it's such a large? I mean, why is there 80 men and only 4 women?
I mean, if you look at statistics, and they show that the majority of people who are incarcerated are males. So whenever, like, there are so many men that are in federal prison that Arkansas doesn't even have a federal prison for women. So if you get sentenced in the state of Arkansas, you're going to get shipped out to another state.
Yeah.
But that was all that was in there. There was 4 women. That was it.
So what would you say the biggest challenge about being in the federal halfway house was?
Being somebody in recovery who was clean, who knew how to advocate for myself, because they would try to do us really bad. Like, they would try to take our rec time and tell us that we couldn't move around because there's too many men, there's not enough staff. But, I can remember sitting in there and being like, I would have rather went back to prison and just did my time. You know what I mean? Rather than to sit here, because you're confined to your room, to a hallway. And I would write grievances on him, and the staff. And the staff didn't like that, but I would write grievances on them. Like, that's what the gift of recovery has given me, the ability, to advocate for myself. Like, you're not just fixing to stick us back here where we can't even move around, come out to eat for like 20 minutes, go back in our room. Come on, man.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest threat about recovering out loud.
Yeah.
It's just something you do really good. So for those of you who don't know, Mary Beth has got a pretty poppin' TikTok where you got 17,000 followers.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people watching you, MB.
Not like you.
Get off the gas, man. Get off the gas. I've been letting loose on. I didn't blow up on social media until I started speaking my mind to the haters.
Yeah.
When I worked for the government, I had to be very cautious about what I said. But when I no longer work for the state, I was like, ooh, I'm finna tear your ass up. I'm finna let you have a piece of my mind. And all of a sudden, it's just like people like the drama. You know what I mean? But for the most part, I try to stay inspirational.
Yeah.
And I love that about your social media. You use it as a platform to carry a message of hope. So,
the first real video that I ever posted that
I saw it. I saw it. I can tell you what it is.
Yeah, me coming home from prison
with the babies.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! I saw that thing went stupid viral.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stupid. Them babies was all over you. I was like, man, if that is not enough to keep you clean, girl.
Yeah.
You need your butt kicked.
Listen, I show that, I work in treatment now at Natural State Recovery in Little Rock. And when our clients come through there and I'm able to tell my story of recovery, because, they look at me as somebody who's in this position and they don't see the addict in me, and so I love to share my story with them. And I show them that video because it's like, this is the sickness of what the disease of addiction, like, it isn't just a me problem.
How long had you been away from your kids in that video when you come home?
2 years. Yeah.
So they didn't even know you was home.
No. You
walked straight through the door.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. You got to go watch that, Ty. Like, kids flip out. They lose it. They're jumping all over you. Screaming.
My daughter's cries. I can still watch it to this day and it gets me emotional.
Shame on you for putting that emotional song on there.
I know.
You can't watch it without crying, man. That's crazy. So what does life look like now? You know what I mean? Because truly you have went from prison to purpose. You are walking in your purpose today.
Life today is crazy. Today I get to be a mom, right? Like, my son, he's an avid bowler. He bowls at state tournaments, national level tournaments. He bowls for his high school team. I am that mom who is watching him, cheering him. I don't ever meet a match today. I don't miss a match today. It's crazy. I got Volunteer of the Year award at my son's preschool whenever I got into recovery. And out of all the accomplishments in my life, and I've accomplished a lot, that certificate
means the most.
Most definitely. I get to be a mom today. I get to be an advocate for recovery today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you that mom at the bowling game screaming, that's my?
Yes, listen. So, like, my thing is, that's my baby. Like, and I yell it. Like,
you're going to embarrass that boy.
No, he's used to it. And so, like, when we travel all across the state, these other teams, they're like, hey, that's my baby, mom. And I'm like, that's me. Yeah.
Hashtag, that's my babies.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's nuts. I remember seeing you at the bowling alley in Cabot too when we had the graduation for the PAC project.
That's our second home.
You know, Chelsea got a bowling ball.
Okay.
Customized and all that.
Come on with it.
I got it for her birthday.
Yeah. Now listen, I say they bowl. I don't bowl.
Yeah.
Like I bowl like 101, and my little baby who's 8, his highest score is a 204.
Yeah.
You know, the older one, he's averaging 200 something. I let them do their thing.
I suck horribly.
Me too.
But I play it off.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because every time I bowl, it's my wife and my son. And so I just pretend I'm letting my son win. Yeah. But I really suck, and he's kicking my butt.
Yeah.
You know, that's nuts. So today, how long have you been clean?
And May the 9th of next year, I will celebrate 7 years.
That's nuts.
It is.
That's nuts, man.
Time flies.
Yeah. So you got 5.5 years right now, right?
6.5.
6.5 years.
Yeah.
6.5 years. Okay. And so, man, congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. What would you say the hardest part about staying clean 6.5 years is?
You know, and let's keep it real. It's not even so much the substances that, because I wasn't addicted to just the drugs, right? Like I was addicted to the lifestyle. And I don't even think about getting high. The thing that I obsess and compulse over a lot now is the money, you know, and I have to check myself. Like when I had all that money, when I had all those cars and those houses and all those things in my life, I was miserable. Yeah. You know, and I constantly have to remind myself, Jimmy, like there were days I remember being in prison, sleeping on that rack, and I was praying, you know, for the problems that I have now, you know, like when my kids are screaming and they're yelling and they're fighting and being kids or work is stressful. I got to remind myself, like I prayed for these days, you know?
Yeah.
And without my recovery, I wouldn't have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
High class problems.
Right. Yeah,
didn't used to be like that.
Yeah, no.
Didn't used to be like that. And then it's easy to lose that gratitude though when you come home. And so you got a house now, or you got your own place, own car, got a solid career,
2 jobs, work hard.
Is that a song?
You a bad broad.
Oh, 2 titles. Okay, so instead of 2 chains, you missed 2 titles.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. You got anything you want to leave the listeners with? If you do, you look right here in this camera and you tell them whatever it is to the still struggling addict or the woman who may be going to prison clean or the newcomer who's just getting started on their journey, trying to get the problems you got.
You know, my message to the world, you know, is hope. You know, I was an addict. I was a junkie. I never in my life thought that I would ever be living the life that I am today. You know, we do recover, you know.
Yeah, we do. We
recover. Don't wait until, you know, that sack runs out or you're about to go to prison or, you know, don't wait for those things. You know, if you're not busy living, you know, you're busy dying, you know, and today I don't want to die. You know, today my life is worth living today. Yeah. And I wouldn't trade it for anything else.
Well, thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
It was fun, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Did you have fun?
I did.
I had fun too. You like these chairs?
Yeah. Your gaming chairs?
Yeah. Well, my social media guy told me that I found them on Black Friday and he said, I think those are a good idea. And I'm like, okay, I didn't need much.
It's fun.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on, man.
I appreciate you for having me.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thanks for listening to From Prison to Purpose. Please follow us on all social media content or all social media platforms. You can listen to our podcast on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, you name it, all streaming platforms. And the long form content of this can be viewed on video at youtube.com/@prison2purpose. So thanks for tuning in and hope to see you next time.
You've been listening to From Prison to Purpose with Jimmy McGill. Please subscribe on any of the major podcasting platforms and on YouTube at Prison to Purpose. This podcast is produced by Ty King with American Business Engine and executive producer Jimmy McGill. For more information, visit us at jimmymcgill.org.